Live, Congressman Steve King. He's a Republican from Iowa. He's also a member of the Tea Party caucus. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So the president says he wants to keep lower taxes for 97% of Americans. The Treasury Department's Office of Tax Analysis says for the tax year 2007, that was under Bush, 3% of all tax returns were for incomes over $200,000. So explain to me, I guess, the Republican view that Obama's proposal would hurt. Walk me through it.
Well, let's say first that, I recall back when these Bush tax brackets were first implemented, it's roughly a decade ago, the argument was, how do you give tax breaks to people that aren't paying taxes? That's a large percentage now. It's a number that's approaching or exceeding 50%. And the bracket would receive a 50% tax increase if the Bush tax brackets were allowed to expire. I think this is just another one of the class envy pieces that the president has done. He's been dividing people down along whatever lines he can demographically to try to win an election.
What do you mean class envy? I mean, how is that class envy? Explain to me that position.
How does, I'm sorry?
Well, you say this is a class envy play by the president. What do you mean?
Oh, yes. Well, if you demonize the people that are making over $250,000 a year and you say they aren't paying their fair share, if you go back around and ask the American people what is a fair share, they'll know that the people over 250 are paying a lot more than the people making less than 250 think they are. That's the class envy piece, and you can always make the argument that you want to raise the taxes on somebody else. Well, the president doesn't think he gets a lot of votes out of that group. It's a small demographic group, and he thinks he gets more energy and more from his base if he just simply targets people making over $250,000. But that's where the jobs are created.
Let's look at some of the polling here quickly. I want to show you that a majority of people would support this proposal, overextending tax cuts for all people. Take a look. This is increasing taxes on people making more than $250,000 a year. Democrats, 83% of them favor it. Independents, 63% favor it. Republicans, only 37% favor it. So you can see this is where there's a real ideological difference here on the tax front, and that's something that both sides are playing into, of course, in an election year.
Well, and I see this, and it's a shift within the culture that I think that poll reflects. And that says that there are more and more people that are looking at others saying they shouldn't be making that much money because I'm not. And they don't feel as much guilt about the 72 different means-tested welfare programs that we have. This country shifted around to the point where if you go back to Franklin Delano Roosevelt and he put out the four freedoms, one of them was freedom from want, the other one was freedom from fear. Those two were manufactured freedoms. Today, it's almost a government guarantee of a middle income standard of living from all of these we have. I like an America where people look around and they feel some guilt about that, and they want to step up and help and carry their fair share of the work.
Well, so
we have too many Americans not contributing to the gross domestic product in the United States today.
So you're saying the president's talking about fair share, saying that people above $250,000 a year should pay what he says is their fair share. Are you saying that poor people and people in government programs are not paying their fair share, that's not fair?
I don't even think that's arguable. If they aren't paying federal income tax, and that's a number about 51% of the working households aren't, yes, their taxes paid in property tax and sales tax and those kind of things, but if they're not going to work, and there's a number approaching 100 million Americans of working age that are simply not in the workforce, and that includes the 13 million that are unemployed. Some can't do anything about that. Some aren't willing to do anything about that. When you add that all up, roughly a third of Americans of working age are not contributing to the gross domestic product of the United States.
And whose fault is that?
They should do their fair share.
Is that because the economy is not giving the opportunities it used to?
I think that one of the things is that people are told that they don't need to create opportunities. It's up to somebody else to offer them a job. I heard that with the people that are occupying Wall Street. There's certainly that theme there. So once you get that into the minds of people that it's not their responsibility, they don't step up to the responsibilities Americans have traditionally had. And that's a negative to our country. And the president promotes those things with these kind of policies.
Let's talk quickly about whether there could be any action on taxes anyway before an election, quite frankly, because we know that we've talked a lot about this fiscal cliff that is looming. If the president is going to say he's 100% committed to only extending the tax cuts for up to $250,000 a year, could we be at an impasse here if Republicans are only saying no, it's got to be for everyone?
Oh, I think we are at an impasse, at least till beyond the election. And as I'm asked this from constituents across the district and the country, I tell them that the results of the election in November will determine what happened to taxation after November and before the December 31st expiration of these tax brackets. And I think that's what this is about. It's about the election for the president. It's not about ending his spending spree. This tax increase on those making over $250,000 a year does not do a thing to solve the president's spending problem. It is a spending problem, and it's a problem of a stagnant economy with the burden of Obamacare, the burden of regulations, and all of the uncertainty that's out there. I'd like to see the people that are making over $250,000 a year make more. They'll create more jobs with that. And Republicans and Democrats have forgotten to remind the American people that, yes, jobs, 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 but you pay for those jobs with, you have to have profit. Business will not invest capital, will not take the risk that creates jobs if they don't have access to profit and a confidence that the government's not going to come in and confiscate it.
And there's also certainly this certainty issue that is when you've got a fiscal cliff in Congress and you can't really do anything in an election year. That adds to uncertainty as well. Congressman Steve King, Republican from Iowa, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Christine.
Coming up in about 20 minutes.